it's a privilege to be here. Yes, indeed, like a little backstory about this. I love Kubernetes Community Days because I organized the very first one in Amsterdam in 2019. There was a blog post from CNCF around beginning of 2019 saying, hey, KubeCons are really cool, they're big and everybody has a lot of fun, but not everybody can go to KubeCon, right? So it's such a intense week. So the blog post was calling for local events to be organized by local communities. I happened to run the Dutch Kubernetes meetup for a long time. And then we just decided to run the first KCD in Amsterdam in 2019. And then, that was in September 2019, then we were really excited and everybody wanted to do another one and many cities reach out. And then of course in March 2020, the world stopped, KCD stopped of course for the coronavirus. We waited. So for a long time, for all these 2 years of pandemic, we were the only KCD ever happened in the world. And of course, like now, I'm very glad to see local communities like the Romanian one organizing KCDs. It's fun and it's cool, so you should be part of the organization. You learn a lot. So it's me, I'm Italian, you can tell. I'm not from the Netherlands, I just lived there for 20 years. I organized the local community there, that's why I'm proud to be an ambassador, which means I go around and talk about the technology I love, which includes Kubernetes, not only. CNCF is a big umbrella now, it's a big family, there's a lot of projects. I'm going to talk about one of them, Istio, today. But there are so many more, 184 or maybe a bit more in the last few weeks. So that's me. And the thing is, so when the talk was accepted, I was still working at Solo.io as a platform advocate. So this talk is what I used to give as part of my job. And then when they accept me and I don't work for Solo anymore, doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that I should stop talking about the technology I love. And that's why I keep going. And I told them, yes, please, I would love to be part of this, even if I don't work for the vendor that sells this stuff. I think it's even better because I just talk about this because I really believe that that service mesh and technology like cloud native technology can help the posture of security for your own organization. So that's me. So I organize KCD Amsterdam and Utrecht. There are two towns in the Netherlands, of course. I'm a CNCF ambassador. I'm part of the tag environmental sustainability. So if you ever are interested in the topics around, or maybe next talk will be about that, how cloud native computing can help saving the planet, as in reducing emissions and using the energy we all crave for in a better way. That's the place to go. So it's a group within the CNCF. It's a tag, so it's a technical advisory group, advise other projects and other community within the CNCF about the impact of their software and their infrastructure. And so it's a very active community, very active group. You're welcome to join. It's if you're interested in the environment, which you should, because it's we only have one planet. We all share it, of course. And of course, I don't work for Solo anymore because I'm building a new startup. I have stickers, by the way. So if you want a sticker, you can reach out to me. And you can also come and help me, or if you want to know more, just reach out. So what we're going to talk about today is Zero Trust Security, and especially so what it is and why it's important, why we care, why you should care, why service mesh is so crucial in implementing Zero Trust Security. At least that's what we believe, what I believe, and what the evolution of Istio brings to the table in terms of security. So is this new mode of deploying Istio, which is cyclerless, is it more or less secure, can help you implementing the Zero Trust Security? So life is not a castle anymore. So this is used to be what we think about when we think about security. I was looking for a picture of a castle, of course, and I found the beautiful Palace castle. So I think it's Transylvania, or it's not Dracula castle, but looks to me very close. So we used to think about security as, you know, the walls around the castle, impenetrable, unbeatable, and unsurmountable, as in no one should be able to pass the walls, so we are safe inside, and all the bad actors stay outside, and that's life is good, and we can live like this for hundreds of years. Not the case anymore, of course. So it turns out the walls are not enough, right? So determined actors or determined armies can overcome your protections, can overcome your walls, and wreak havoc within your castle. So this is what we believe was the state of the art of security, which is this perimeter security, perimeter wall, right? So where we set the boundaries, the security boundaries at the perimeter, and if you're inside, you are trusted. So this has been what we thought about security for a long time, in terms of I don't know, probably you experienced the same. There was, there still is in many organizations, a VPN, and then if you are in the VPN, you're good. Or if you are in the office and you're part of this VLAN, we automatically trust you to be a good actor, or an employee, or somebody that can access services. So identity based on your network identity, right? So if you have this IP address, then you're good and you can access the services. This is the same as the castle, right? So this is the idea behind this perimeter security. It's not good anymore. So because it is proven, and it's been very, very common to have actors that can overcome or can impersonate somebody from within the organization, and then assume the role that you can assume because you are in the perimeter. So the danger now comes from inside the house. The danger, the protection that you have to implement is from actors that you don't know where they are. They can be anywhere. They can be inside, can be outside. So you have to treat everything as insecure, right? So that's the idea. That's the paradigm shift for zero trust security, where you treat everything as an insecure actor, as insecure object or insecure endpoint, and you have to work towards securing those properly through authentication, identity, and so on. So I'm not going to bother you too much with this. Of course, the enemy is at the gates and inside the house as well. So the new way of thinking about this is that we got to secure everything. There is no place where you can just be trusted because you are part of some network or some VLAN, or you need to authenticate every request. It's more of a burden, of course. Introduce latency, and you need more CPU, and you need more specialized chips for encryption, for example. And I would say it's also less green, because of course you need to use this computing power to encrypt and decrypt traffic, encrypt and decrypt data at rest and in transit. And so it's more of a burden, but it proved to be the modern way and the better way to think about security today. So zero trust security is not a tool. It's not something you can buy. It's no certification. You cannot pass an exam about zero trust security. It's a mentality, it's an approach. It's something that you can think of or think about in terms of zero trust security when you want to secure your workloads and your application. So it's nothing off the shelf, or and by no means I'm trying to sell you zero trust security, except for the idea of mistrust origins, mistrust endpoints and actors, and just secure everything from end to end, right? So from the beginning of the journey of the user, from probably the first thing that you encounter when you want to access a service is probably some border API gateway or border routers, and probably you pass along into another layer of routing, and then down to the core service and down to the database. Every request has to be authenticated, and there's also what we see the evolution from monolith to microservices. This exacerbates the problems of implementing zero trust security, because now you have more stuff to secure, more moving parts, more databases, more services. So how you do that? How can you do that easily or better than at least with less taxing, less troubles than before? So X cannot talk to Y unless Y explicitly allows them to. So it's how we think in terms of zero trust security. So you don't let anybody talk to anyone, so unless there is an explicit identity associated with the request. So assume the network is compromised, default deny, and don't allow any unauthenticated access or policy. So no anonymous endpoints, only allow, and all this, of course, because of this explosion of complexity, you cannot just do it manually, right? So there's even more need for DevOps, for automation, for policy as code. So things like who can talk to who expressed in terms of code, can be YAML, can be JSON, whatever you prefer, but something that can be reasoned about, something can be stored and applied automatically by other machines. So no human intervention, because that's the weakest link of the chain, right? So humans are always the easiest layer to exploit, right? So you can make a phone call now with AI. You can pretend you are Obama or the president of another president. So you can exploit people much easier than computers, right? So that's always been the case. And so you have to delegate as much as possible to computers, to automation, and so that's why the need for policy as code. And likely, all these cloud native ideas, all these tools we all love and trust, like Kubernetes and Istio, they all work with these ideas of everything as code. So what is zero trust again? So just to summarize, it's a set of security principles. So it's not a tool, it's not something you buy. There is a zero trust architecture, or an architecture that follows the zero trust principles, which is just your plan to implement these ideas in this concept. And the zero trust enterprise is defined as an enterprise, an organization that follows the zero trust principles. So some principles are there: policy management, just repeating, just for clarity. All sensitive data should be encrypted. Everything should be monitored. So every request should leave a trace. Auditing is extremely important in zero trust. So you cannot possibly have a zero trust architecture if you cannot tell at any moment in time who is calling who, what identities are associated with the request, and if the request fails or not. So monitoring is extremely, it becomes even more important because you want to enforce security at this level. So this some just repetition of what is zero trust, or what you can the tenets of zero trust network. You presume breach, you scrutinize, and apply analytics, of course. So these are frameworks. So because of this is so important, so the NIST, the National Institute of Standards, jump in, of course, because it's the authority in US that is charged with defining the standards that every industry should follow. So there is a zero trust framework. So it's a real thing. It's a document, big one, that defines all these ideas, and it's from the NIST, so you can trust it, right? So it's all about trust in the end, right? So now we trust someone like the National Institute of Standard and Technology to give us guidance, give us guidelines to implement these ideas. So the 5 pillars: the devices, the data, the identity, the networks, and the application. So, and then there's not competing but complementary framework from the MIT, which is the Zero Trust Architecture Framework. So it's interesting read. very high level, very theoretical, but there are then controls and implementation of these frameworks that are relevant to what we're going to talk about. So this is the framework, the MIT framework, sorry, the NIST framework. So it's, if you look at the top level, of course, like you want to implement things like traffic policy, you want to protect your API gateways, you want to have strong identity for all requests, so, and tools like Spiff and Spire, we're going to talk about, can help there. And so if you remember the OSI layer, right, so there are some layers that deal with the layer 7, so the HTTP request layer. So all these top ones are purely about the layer 7, so HTTP request. But then there is a underlying layer, which is the transport layer, which is what we call layer 4, where you can still, and still have a good positive impact on your security posture, where you can implement network policies, you can implement mutual TLS encryption, and now we get into the core where what can I do here, right? So what can I actually do in my daily job? What can I implement in my clusters so I can satisfy the requirements of the, for example, the NIST Zero Trust framework. And these are codes, these are documents again on the NIST website. You can download them, they are open for everyone. So the 204AB is about service mesh implementation of these ideas. The 800.207 is the Zero Trust framework. And that would be more, of course, it's a moving target. There's more and more things being written about and so on. And then the base is the SP 853, which is the big document that describes what is Zero Trust architecture. So, in a very important part of the of these ideas is to have a place in your architecture where you can enforce policies. So this is one of the core ideas behind the Zero Trust architecture, that you have a place where you can actually make a decision about this request. There's a client that wants to access a resource, and what are you going to do about it? You can either deny or allow the request. So how do you do that? You need a policy enforcement point, so a place where you can intercept, you can make a decision about the request. And keep it in mind, will come very clear in a second. So, service mesh. Who use service mesh today? Yeah, okay, could be better, could be better. Maybe tomorrow people will jump on using service mesh. I hope so. So, complexity is increasing. We went from when I have to make a bank operation, I have to go to the store, to the bank shop, and ask somebody to get money, to I have a bank in my pocket. I can just move millions through a phone, or I can order food from everywhere. And all this is thanks to microservices architecture, right? So it's not only that, of course, but the rise of these global applications that they're always available and always in the hands of millions requires the transition to a more distributed architecture, and so microservices are the way to go. The microservice is the name of the game, and it's like chicken and egg thing, right? So did microservice happen before cloud native, or kind of cloud native help the transition to microservices because it's cloud native computing? If you look at the definition, it is a set of ideas that are particularly well fitted to the microservices architecture. So one feeds into the other, right? So and because there's this explosion of services and things are distributed and we don't know where they are or how they look like, quite early on in the cloud native evolution, I mean, we just saw the keynote, it's been 10 years, and it's about, I think, Thank you for updating. So early on in the evolution of cloud native, there was this need of, we need more control over the network, right? So because this is important, we don't deal with IPs anymore. I don't know which IP my pod got, so I can't possibly keep a list of IPs, right? So I can't possibly keep the old paradigms of infrastructure carried along in the cloud native world. So we need a new thing, new ideas. And one of the early on answer to this was service mesh, right? So, and it's not a new thing. It's been around for at least 7 of the 10 years of Kubernetes history. Definitely Istio is 7 years old, so it's been around for a long time. And it's a programmable network framework, right? So imagine you can program, you can observe, program, control all the flows of networking within your infrastructure. And that's exactly what a service mesh does. Of course, does much more than that. Because you have control, now you can measure, right? So you can collect metrics, logs, whatever. You can see the requests as they come in, because you have a mesh. You transform your application in a meshed application. So let's go quick. So service mesh is an ecosystem. There's plenty. Many of these are part of CNCF, of course. But I'm going to focus on one today because it's my favorite, but also because it's evolving very fast. By no means is the only service mesh around, but it's pretty popular. Actually, I would say it's the most popular service mesh out there. Definitely a large user base, a large community, and evolving. And I'll show you why it's important. So, and it's also graduated, so which means it's, at that level, together with the Kubernetes and Prometheus and OpenTelemetry projects up there, right? So where they are safe to use for production, they have big communities around it. And graduated in 2023, just after it was adopted by the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. So, and what is Istio architecture? It's very simple in a way. So imagine you inject, so you can put like this little proxies, which is based on Envoy. Envoy is another open source project, CNCF project, graduated. It's a reverse proxy, right? So it's a very fast, very efficient, very programmable, because the genius of Envoy is this XDS protocols, this programmability of the proxy through APIs, right? So this is one of the distinctive feature of the proxy. So imagine you put a proxy very close to your application, very, very close, so in the same pod, really. So a pod can be made of multiple containers. So imagine you have your application within a pod, there's only one container, and now you add one more, which is a sidecar. And now, magically, or not so magically, everything is now flowing through the proxies, not through the application itself, not directly through the application. Eventually, you do reach the service, but always mediated by the proxy. So, and all these proxies, which form the mesh, are programmed and controlled and deployed through a control plane. So there is a clear separation of data plane and control plane, which is Istio control plane and the data plane. So it's all nice and dandy. You can add gateways, ingress, egress, because hey, you have full control over what's going on and what will go on inside, incoming and outgoing from your application, from your clusters. And you have full control, so you can define policies right there. So imagine now, this is our policy enforcement point. This is exactly what we try to do with service mesh. So why service mesh is good for your zero trust? Because now, magically, you have a policy enforcement point. Good. So now, we realize we need service mesh, and it's great, of course, but this architecture, although pretty popular and very working just fine for many years, it's still a burden and a barrier for adoption, because you need to restart your application, because you have to now inject a new container. Something goes wrong, you have to troubleshoot not only your application, but also the sidecar. So it's not always, the community of Istio came together and listened to the users, and they say, well, the users were very clear about it. We love Istio, sidecars, not so much. Can you do something about it? Can you, the community, can the Istio project address the complexity of sidecars with a new way of thinking about doing exactly the same thing? So not losing any feature, not losing any and I'm going to speed up, not losing any advantage of that, of Istio, but in a different way. Yes, we can. So we go from proxy per container, proxy per pod, per application, to a proxy per node. And that's the genius of Istio Ambient Mesh, which gets away with the complexity while still keeping all the features that you can think of, you can wish for a service mesh. So that's why Ambient Mesh is so popular. It's becoming quickly the de facto mode of operation for Istio, and other service mesh are following. Some of them, of course, like stick to the idea of a sidecar, but you see how many moving parts are on the left on the sidecar model, and how many moving parts are on the right side. So you go from n to, so if you have 10 pods, you have 10 sidecars, 10 containers. But if the 10 pods are on one node, you go from 10 to 1. So you reduce 10 times the complexity and the impact of your application, or of your service mesh. So it goes from sidecar proxy to Z-tunnel, which is this proxy per node. By the way, it's called Z-tunnel because it's a zero trust tunnel, where you can delegate to this tunnel, to this proxy, all things layer 4 about your mesh. So very clearly separation. There is a layer 4, which is taken care by the Z tunnel, and the layer 7 is still done by a separate proxy, because layer 7 is a all different game, right? So layer 4 is all about multiple TLS and TCP connections, while layer 7, it's all about HTTP, it's all about request and mirroring or rate limiting, and that's done better by a specialized proxy deployed only for the application that needs it, separately from the Z-tunnel. So the Z-tunnel sits on the node and intercept the traffic from the pods that you add to the mesh. So not all the pods, of course, only the pods that you do want to have under control. And it interacts with the control plane to request certificates on behalf of the application. That's why we say that's a better posture, because the certificates are handled by a specialized proxy, so not the sidecar, but this Z-tunnel. So it's better because it's harder to compromise. Imagine you have 10 proxies and you can hack into any one of those and have access to the application, while you have one single proxy on the node, and it's harder to, because it's also the Istio community rewrote the proxy in Rust, which is a more type-safe language. So I'll skip to, but this, you get the idea, right? So it's also better for your wallet, because you reduce the amount of memory and CPU you need, even 10 times. And of course, not only for the wallet, but for the planet, because you have less stuff to think about. So I'm gonna skip this, but so you know, there's a lot of discussion about security, if this is better for security. I believe this is better because there's less blast radius, right? So that's, you can compromise just one Z tunnel, you only compromise the node, and the rest of the nodes are safe. So if you want to know more, of course, there's a bunch of blog posts. Solo.io, my former employer, would be very happy to also guide you through. There's an academy, that's how you learn, by doing. It's very, very cool. I want to shout out to the KCD Utrecht team. So it's also very nice to be part of a team, and it's also very so cool to be here to see how others KCD do. I think you're doing an awesome job, and I want to thank you very much. And if you want to know more about Kubespace, you want a sticker, and you want to talk to me about it, it's namespace as a service. It's going to be awesome. And I got very inspired by Andrei talk. I think I'm going to be successful because of that. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm here.